Detroit was finally back in action this weekend, but unfortunately dropped both games.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. I'm your host, Brian Fisher. With me today, as always, is the other host here, Scotty Bentley. He is also host at Locked On Tigers. We want to thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. Going to keep plugging that until those numbers get bumped up. Got to keep bumping those numbers. Pump them up, baby.
YouTube, baby. You got to pump it up, don't you know?
It's been growing at a steady pace. Our listeners have been doing a very good job. You guys rock, as always.
Yes.
You all ball. As
we
Scott
ball.
would say.
We
and they ball.
Just
we
a community.
Ball and they ball. As a community, I like that. That's good.
We ball.
The Red Wings did not ball this weekend.
They certainly did not, especially by Sunday. There was very little balling by Sunday. Fridays, I mean, I was actually pretty damn pleased with Friday's game, to be honest with you. I mean that's I would say close to significantly better roster that we played really well. The only reason it was 2 goals was because of an emptier at the end. I was pretty damn pleased with how well they played Friday. Sunday, on the other hand, was kind of a train wreck.
Yeah, and it's a shame too, because we talked about on Friday how excited we were just to have hockey back and like to be able to preview a game, and there were going to be 2 games this weekend. Come back with we were hoping they'd get at least 1 win. We could, then we could do a little quick. How do you do about the loss, and then focus on the win? Well, they lost both games.
Not
doesn't help.
Not. I would say it's probably not how we drew it up. But
no, not really.
We still ball. It's just like,
we make two. No, it's
not
just
quite how we drew it up.
It's still great to be able to talk about a game, though. And in this case, games. And like you said, the Washington game was probably the better of the two, despite the fact that they still ended up losing that one 3-1. I thought they played overall very close with the Washington Capitals for the first 40 minutes. They got on the Detroit got on the board first, thanks to Pius Suter banking in the rebound. It was kind of like a shot pass by Gagne off the pads of the goaltender for the Washington Capitals in that game, and he buried the rebound. But after that, it was all Capitals all game long. Kuznetsov and then Ovechkin netted 2. I mean, you're not going to win many hockey games with Alex Ovechkin scoring. That's just cold hard facts.
Yeah, I mean, he scores in quite a lot of them, right? It's like we talked about how earlier this year we had kind of found a way to limit Ovi. The infamous one game where he didn't get a shot on net. Like they've proven to be able to kind of shut down. I don't know if shut down's even the right word, but limit, somewhat contain top end talent like that. And yeah, he let one in, and like you said, you're not gonna beat the Caps too often when Ovi is scoring goals, and we didn't. But like we said at the beginning, I mean, the as a whole, I thought the team looked pretty good, and I was kind of riding a little bit of a high of confidence going into Sunday. That didn't last very long, but I was pretty pleased for the most part.
Yeah, the problem is they played, as I said, the first 2 periods pretty hard, but in the third period, the all offense kind of just sizzled out and it became a Washington Capitals game the entire time. They took another bad penalty. And that led to Alex Ovechkin, around his wheelhouse. It wasn't his typical office, so to speak. He was
in the building, though.
He was in the building.
He wasn't in his cubicle, but he was in work. Like he was at the job. He had clocked in. He wasn't sitting down at the desk yet.
No, he was in the break room getting a cup of coffee.
Yeah, getting the water, shooting the crap at the water cooler or something. Yeah.
No, he wasn't in the left circle, but he was above it near the blue line where he unleashed his slap shot and his one timer. And Thomas Greiss God bless him, did all he could, and it just trickled through his 5-hole, and that ended up being the game winner, and then he capped it off with an empty netter, and it's just the team's got to find a way to play all 60 minutes, and that's just something that they're continuing. It's part of the growing pains of a team that is learning, a young team that is learning, and it's just they gotta. The same thing can be said with the game against the Boston Bruins, which we'll get into in the second segment probably. Being able to play the full 60 minutes is, it sounds obvious when you say it, but like not all teams do it, and the teams that do it are the ones who win games, and Red Wings don't do it yet.
No, it's a step in team development. I mean, it like you go from just being bad all the time, which we 2 seasons ago we were, and then you get to this kind of growing pains, kind of an area where you have good stretches, or you have a couple games that you play really well, or a couple periods within a game that you play really well, but playing a full 60 is what good teams do. And it's something that, when you have a young team that has talent, young, good, great talent. And you start kind of like, okay, you see the flashes, and you see good stretches, and you see 2 periods in a row of pretty good hockey. And, But playing a full 60, no matter the score, is a really big step in development that really separates in any sport good teams, okay teams, and great teams.
Yeah, and you're 100% right on that.
I know.
The thing too, I love the confidence. Not next time I'm going to tell you you're wrong, and then I'm going to reiterate everything you said.
See, what the thing is, I'm also the person that if you go you're wrong, I'll say I know to that as well. So yeah, you're gonna be right either way, I guess.
It's true. As long as I look good in the end, I don't care what you look like. So
right. We got to give you the big text.
Oh, wait, hold on. Where is it at? There we go. I'm more important.
Yeah, just make your screen huge, and I'll just be. I can't. Once we have like a big disagreement, it's gonna happen. Yeah, see, there it is. It's gonna happen.
Anyways, Tom, I'm just keep doing the segment like this.
Are we? I was gonna say, am I staying small right
now? You're in the penalty box, so to speak.
All right,
the literal penalty box.
I agreed with you, and I'm putting the penalty box.
Thomas Greiss got the start in that game, and that was something that caught us off guard. He actually played pretty well, all things considered. I mean,
he was good.
Yeah, no, he played fine. The one goal, the slap shot from Alex Ovechkin, the one timer that squeaked through his 5-hole. Like, part of me is like, I want to critique him, or not critique, but criticize him for allowing one through the 5-hole, a squeaker like that. But again, it was Alex Ovechkin who unleashed the shot. I mean, he made 24 of 26 saves. He put the Red Wings in a position to win. As out of a choice as it was, though, that's the thing that I'm trying to get at. Is it's weird that we were so confident that Nedeljkovic would be the starter, because he feels like the starter at this point. That after 13 days off, they would give Thomas Greiss the start, and I'm trying to wrap my head around. And he played fine. I'm not complaining about his performance. I'm just saying I'm trying to wrap my head around why they started him over Nedeljkovic when Nedeljkovic feels at this point like the clear and away starter.
Yeah, to me it feels like, like it could have been situational, and just like they looked ahead and said, okay, we got 2 games in our first 3 days back. But it's a tough 2 first games, like to the Wings. I'm not going to say credit, but I guess a slight excuse on their hand. I mean, those are 2 tough teams to come back from after not playing for 2 weeks. But part of me was thinking, maybe they thought Ned would just match up better against Boston, and that was the way they wanted to go, because they did have 2 games really close there within each other. So maybe that's something to do with that, and just thinking that, I don't know. Like, that's really the only thing I can think of, because we talked about how just flat out shocked we would be if Ned wasn't the start of the first game back, and then he wasn't. So the only thing I can think of really is that they just looked ahead and thought, we won our starter against Boston instead of Washington, I guess. But I mean, they're both damn good teams, so I don't know.
Well, and it maybe also has something to do with the fact that he was in COVID protocol, and just giving him a little bit more, another couple days to get his feet back underneath him, so to speak. Or it could just be as simple as what you were saying, is it was a matchup situation. But I know that in the past they have done. I mean, they did Nedeljkovic for 4 consecutive starts, and in that stretch there was like 1 day off between games. So I'm not so much sold that they just wanted to do one and then the other. Like maybe it was also they just wanted to get Greiss some workload. I mean, it'd been 13 days off for him too, at the very least. So I mean, he needs a game here and there. There's could be multiple reasons. I'm not really too worried about it in the long run. I'm more worried about Nedeljkovic's performance he had against Boston, because that was not so hot.
Much more worried about the performance than I am the who started which game, for sure.
Yeah, and we still got to talk about Seider's performance in that Washington game, because he was the standout guy altogether. He looked fantastic. But before we get to that, I got to talk to you guys about Built Bar. It's the new year, so that means New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure you include Built Bar in your plan. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, maybe even better than a candy bar. Built Bar makes it easier to stick to your resolution because it tastes so good, you want to eat it. Unlike other protein bars that can be chalky, waxy, or taste like a chemical spill.
Chemical spill, dog.
Can you imagine that?
I've had them before.
Do you know what a chemical spill tastes like, for reference?
I've had other protein bars that are not as good, and so I can say I understand where they're coming from at a very minimum. Yeah, it's like some of them are straight up gross, dog.
Yeah, actually, I've gone through the gambit looking for protein bars, and like real talk, I've looked through, like, tried so many different ones, and I'm not going to say brands. I'm not going to like shame brands live here, but a lot of them are exactly what I don't know about the chemical spill part, but chalky, like gross.
There's some bad ones, man.
It like, what is the point of it supposedly tasting like chocolate chip or peanut butter brownie when it just is not appetizing whatsoever? And you don't get that problem with Built Bar, because when it says it tastes like, a pie, a raspberry pie, it tastes like a raspberry pie. And that's 100%, with it being covered in 100% real chocolate, helps in all the right ways. And it's only 130 calories with 4 grams of sugar, with 4 net carbs and 17 grams of protein. Compare that to a candy bar, which usually has 240 calories, 30 grams of sugar, and a dozen net carbs. So make sure you go to built.com, use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, Scotty, as we continue to break down the Washington Capitals loss that occurred on Friday, New Year's Eve. Happy New Year's, by the way. I don't think I even mentioned
Happy New
that.
Year's, brother. Happy New Year's.
Maybe, do you got any New Year's resolutions for yourself, not for the Red Wings?
I mean, like, I don't know. I've never been big on like super, I don't know, specific. Is that the right word? Like New Year's resolutions like that. Like, oh, I want to eat less of this specific thing, or I want to work out more, or whatever. But I'm still very much on, I the last couple of years especially, I've really just gone into it and wanted to, if I can look back at the end of the year and know that I made strides with my mental health and everything that I got going up on here, I'll be a happy camper. And that's been the last few years for me. So that's more of a general sense, but that's usually my my thought going into most New Year's.
That's a good resolution to have. Mental health is a good one.
Yeah, I mean, hey, I mean, everybody who follows me and keeps tabs on me is aware of my advocacy. That's a word, right?
Advocacy. It's a good word too.
Hell yeah! Look at me. For that kind of stuff. I mean, my sign off for the Tigers show is literally going to therapy's dope. That's literally my sign off that I end every episode with. So, yeah, that's definitely my my biggest. Like you go into it, you're like, oh, like I could do this more, whatever. But for the most part, that's really what my main focus is going into most New Year's and this one.
Yeah, mine is to grow more hair.
You know what? I respect that. I really do respect that. Do you think you're gonna win it?
We'll have to see. I don't know. There's a lot of those
time will
experiments
tell,
of dreams.
Only time will tell.
You know what? We need to get like a Hims ad.
There you go.
So they send me some free product.
There you
Some
go.
hair back.
We'll talk to the people upstairs. Be like, hey, you got any hair growing supplement people that might want to sponsor the show?
We'll check in 2023 and see if I follow through on this resolution to grow more hair on my head.
All right, everybody bookmark it. First episode of 2023. Brian is showing us his head, and we're seeing the hair difference from today to then.
I wish I had Moritz Seider's flow. I also wish I could play like Moritz Seider. I can't do either of those.
You're more of an enforcer, Brian.
Yeah, and I'm more of an enforcer. That's why I separated my shoulder just grabbing a guy the other day. Moritz Seider,
let him know what's up.
He was the one bright spot in both these games, I think. Consistently looked good. More so in the Washington game, but to an extent in the Boston Bruins game too. And, surprise, surprise, the guy who's like, 1A or 1B in the Calder Trophy, early polls has been surprisingly good. But more so in these last two games because of his physicality. We've seen a lot of his defensive capabilities in the start of the season, in the first half of the season. We've seen a lot of his offensive capabilities in the first half of the season. But the one aspect we really haven't gotten a ton of, that we got tons of highlights of all throughout the season last year when he was in Sweden, was his physicality. And these last two games, his physicality has shown, especially that one shift that went viral where he hit three guys. And that third hit was Dowd, who came basically trying to get revenge for the first two guys, was running him. And Seider saw him coming and he plays it so smart. He acts like he doesn't see them coming. And the last second, he just shoulder to chest. And Dowd had to embellish it, make it look like he was hurt, and started a whole scrum. But yeah, they both ended up getting coincidental minors, but just the Moritz Seider physicality came out in full force, and I was all about it. I'm like, this is what we need out of him. This is what we need from the team in general, for them to stand up for themselves.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I think I have no reservations. I don't think off the top of my head. I think that might be the best single game he has looked all year. I mean, he was phenomenal. He was great offensively, really good passing. And as you said, I mean, there were several shifts in that game where you could point and go, that might be his best shift of the year. And then he went out and had another phenomenal one and another phenomenal one. I really, nothing comes to mind. No game comes to mind. I think that might have been the best performance he's had all year. And he was unbelievable. And it gets you pumped up about the future. It gets you pumped up mid-game. It's especially, like you said, when it's physical like that. I mean, that kind of stuff just amps you up. And for the first two periods, I mean, for really the whole game, it was such a close game that really gets you excited, gives you a little kick in the pants. And I mean, what else can you say? I can't wait to see the heights that he reaches here, because I truly think that this is only the beginning kind of a thing that we're witnessing right now. And I'm really pumped for years in the future. And I'm really pumped for just the second half of this season, because that was an incredible way for him to come back from that 2-week break.
Yeah. And he also was tied on the team leader in shots in the game with Larkin, who's always, a safe bet. Larkin will take shots from anywhere, any angle half the time.
Oh yeah. Larkin makes sure he gets his shots.
If you're a betting man, I'm telling you.
Yeah,
if you're one of those apps that actually lets you bet over under and shot totals, always bet the over with Larkin, because he's gonna hit it. That man takes shots from any angle.
He's a beauty.
But Seider from the back end also had the team lead with 3 shots in that game. I mean, there wasn't a lot of shots by the Red Wings. I think they only shot the puck 20 times on net. But
20-27, I think, was the final.
Yeah, he's playing super physical in his own defensive end, but then on the blue line, he's generating his own chances. He is so quickly becoming the complete package and the number one D-man that this team needs. And we've not the first time we've said that, but it's just every single, even the bad games, he goes out there and he impresses. Say the same thing about Lucas Raymond, who had a quiet 2 games this weekend, but they have been consistently the bright spot in even the worst games, and he just did it again.
What would it take for Mo Seider to not win the Calder at this point?
It would have to take either a horrible second half of the season by him, like just advanced metric wise, he's just god awful. Like the wheels just fall off, or Lucas Raymond or Trevor Zegras would have to like explode for, I don't know, like they'd have to find the net way more than they already are. I mean, Zegras is the the rookie of the month for December, and because he had 11 points in nine games, including that incredible assist he had. He's having a great season in his own right. I think Moritz Seider's the best rookie out of the three right now, but I think that Moritz Seider's hindered by the fact that he's a defenseman, if I'm being honest.
For sure.
And because when it comes to whenever anyone votes anything that includes both parties, they're always going to be biased towards forwards because forwards generate goals. Yep. And that's what people like to see. Even like the Norris Trophy voting for best defenseman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've seen
by the highest goal scoring defenseman.
We've seen some subpar defensive defensemen win the Norris because they score a lot of goals. Yeah.
And it's obviously Moritz Seider's getting the credit he deserves because in a lot of the polls, he's
comfortably at the top.
Yeah, top 3, top 2 every single time with Lucas Raymond. But in the end, I think he is going to have to far outshine his counterparts comparably by like his defense is going to have to far outshine their offensive production.
Yep.
Just because of the way that these people who vote on these things view offensive production higher than they view good, solid defense.
For sure. No, absolutely. I think if I was a BetOnline.ag betting man, I would have to go Seider 1, like by the end of the season. I think Zegras probably ends at 2, Seider 1, and Raymond 3. I think that is what I would do. Or not what I would do, what I think will end up happening.
Yeah, I think that Seider is definitely comfortable at number 1, too. Right now, I think Raymond is still outpacing Zegras.
I think if the season ended today, Raymond would be 2.
Yeah, you're thinking long term.
I agree with that. By after game 82, I think. Okay. Zegras has looked phenomenal, and I think the Ducks also probably stay a little bit more competitive than the Wings might long term as well, which will help him being if he's a young forward, one of the highest point totals on the team, rookie forward on a team that's pushing for a playoff spot possibly. I think that might give him an edge too.
Well, thankfully, Seider also had a pretty strong game. Well, no one really had a strong game, I should say.
Relatively speaking.
Relatively strong.
Strong game, sure.
Compared to the rest of his team on Sunday. But we'll get to that after this break. All right, Scotty. Moritz Seider in the 5-1 loss on Sunday had another nice counter hit on Pastrnak, who I don't know why people keep trying to take out Moritz Seider. I guess it's kind of trying to like take him down a peg because he's a rookie, but he's just he doesn't fall down.
It's a tough thing to do, man. Yeah. He's a tree.
He's 6'4", and that's tall by hockey standards. The guy's
a tough thing to do.
You can't do it. And that is one of the few bright spots that even happened in that Boston Bruins game because they lost 5-1 after taking an early lead, scored by not Moritz Seider. Him on my brain. Tyler Bertuzzi, his third goal in 3 games because he had 2 goals in the Devils game 2 weeks ago. That's a bright spot. And the other bright spot was Namestnikov getting into a fight with Marchand. It's honestly more of a hugging match than a fight, but just a fire out of Namestnikov. I love that.
He was riled up, baby.
I love him.
He was riled up. He was riled up.
He's pulling Antonio Brown, trying to pump the crowd out as he left the ice.
I hope that's the only type of Antonio Brown antics he pulls. But my goodness, man, he was fired up. Yes. I mean, I don't know. That's one where like I wish they would release, like they would mic people up and release the tape because I would love to know what Marchand said because he was fired up, man. He was feeling it. I
think everyone just hates Marchand.
Well, yes, that is absolutely true. I think everybody that outside of the city of Boston hates Brad Marchand. But I mean, like I don't know, like we don't see that out of him very often. And I would love to know what was said because he was spitting some game, man. He was fired the hell up.
Scotty, I know we're trying to hold off on trade deadline talk before like an episode or maybe even 2 episodes about it.
Yeah, those trade deadline special episodes are going to hit.
But
They're
Namestnikov,
gonna
man,
hit.
I know he's on the last year of his contract and he's playing really well this year, but I love him on this team so much and what he brings. Like you can tell he wants to be in Detroit. Honestly, I feel that same way with Sam Gagner. I feel like those two guys love playing here. And I mean, I would understand trading them, but like with the way Namestnikov is playing, with the grit he's bringing, like Namestnikov's bringing grit. That's not his game. And like, it's just,
I mean, he's
loved it.
looking nice.
He's looking nice. He's looked nice all season. We've talked about it. It's not even a sneaky good season anymore. He's the fifth most productive forward on the team in a career year for him. And he's got the roots here. There's so many of the players in the coaching staff have their roots here, which is part of what makes the Detroit Red Wings so special. But I would understand, but I would hate to see him get dealt because of the style of play he has been bringing. Like he gives it all every single game, and he has a little bit of talent to back it up.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that he's looked phenomenal this year. I think, man, like the expiring deal makes it really hard.
Yeah.
That makes it really tough to not flip him. Like it really, I mean, like he hasn't had a season really even close to what he's doing production wise up to this point, what he's on pace for in his career, and having a career year on an expiring deal on a team that's probably not going to make the playoffs is like the poster child. Those are the three things. If you wanted to cook up a recipe of how to make a trade deadline target, those are the three exact things in order that you would add to it. I mean, he is the prototype for getting flipped at the deadline. So it's something like we'll definitely look more in depth to it as the trade deadline gets closer. But I mean, I'm with you in that same breath. I love what he brings to the team. I've loved watching him play this year, and it's gonna be interesting, man. It's gonna be a really, really intriguing next few weeks.
Can we just pull the good old Robbie Fabry gets a random extension in the middle of the season?
That could happen.
I would not be opposed to it. I mean, he's not over the hill yet. He's still got a few more good years. It doesn't have to be a long-term contract. Obviously, he's on pace to have a career year here in Detroit, so he'd be looking for a little bit more term and probably a little bit more money. But I wouldn't be. He's a solid middle six forward. You can slot him in the second line if need be. He shines on the third line, to be honest. Like you put him on the third line and he's producing. He's a better third line forward than most other third line forwards in the league because he's a middle six forward. Like he can go in either spot. So you put him on the third line, he's going to shine there in his limited minutes. And so you give him a 2 or 3 year extension at whatever rate, as long as it's not astronomical. And I trust Stevie. I mean, wouldn't sign him to an astronomical deal. He's not Ken Holland. That I would be okay with it. I mean, he's a really good depth forward for this team.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a couple of guys last year that we thought were close to guaranteed trade targets on the team that ended up not getting moved. But I don't know, man. I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I wouldn't mind at all him getting a nice little, couple of year extension for the right price. A little how's it going?
Yeah.
But it's just given, like I said, given those three things and given the situation, it's really also very hard to see a situation and a scenario to where he's kind of just locked up here the day after the deadline as well.
Or you could say locked on.
Yeah,
but outside of Seider and Namestnikov, it was a real bad game. They lost 5-1.
That was it. It was a tough game.
Nedeljkovic did not play well. I mean, granted, he was peppered. He faced 37 shots, but he let in, 5 of those 37 shots. It's not good. And a lot of them were like, you could tell he expected the shot to go mid-glove, went over his shoulder. There were a couple of ones that puck went short side, went under his glove, over his pad. Like just shots, goals where he was in position and just didn't make the save. And we don't
which is
bag
frustrating.
we don't bag on Nedeljkovic a lot, but it's just frustrating when stuff like that happens. And it's an outlier in his performance so far this season. But when you have a team like Boston who has 5 games in hand on you and is literally right below you in the playoffs, chasing that second wild card seed, you need Nedeljkovic to come out and have a great game. But it's not all on him. The team only played like the first 30 to 40 minutes, anyways. I mean, the team as a whole didn't play well. It's just that if you're an NHL team, an NHL franchise that is trying to push for the playoffs and make a case to be a legitimate playoff contender, you cannot lose games to the team that has 5 games in hand on you, and you can't lose 5-1 to the team that has 5 games in hand on you. And that's the second time they've lost 5-1 to the Bruins this season. Just a bad game.
Yeah, and given the division and where the teams are in the standings and all that, like it's a really tough pill to swallow. The one kind of silver lining, I guess, one small bright spot on the whole weekend was the yeah, I mean, that was a phenomenal game. Johnny Kane, great on the call, by the way.
Yes, he did an awesome job.
Phenomenal. The face-off percentage was actually we kind of blew Washington out of the water with it. I think it was 65-35. And then even the Bruins game where, as everybody knows, we got washed still barely by literally one face-off win, I think. Beat them, edge them out as well. So just a nice little silver lining. That's an important part of the game. And I don't know, end on a high note, I guess. Just something to keep in mind at least at a bare minimum. If we can hang our hat on something, even when the team's not playing well, that's a pretty damn good thing to be able to hang your hat on.
It's great to be able to get possession right off the get-go, but you have to be able to maintain possession after that fact, and that's where they're struggling.
Is a tough, especially in neutral ice. I mean, in the middle of the ice, it is turnover city, man. It's really rough. There's and it's like it doesn't matter how. Like there's bad passes that are intercepted. There's just getting poked. I mean, it's every way you can fathom a turnover just happens in neutral ice. It's really not great.
No, far.
And on a high note, though, good face-offs this weekend.
I won't mention the power play then this episode. All right, we'll leave it off at that. The team lost both games this weekend. There were bright spots. The biggest one is they're back on the ice playing hockey again after 13 days off. They play the Sharks on Tuesday, so we'll have a game preview for you guys tomorrow. And Scotty, any final thoughts? I guess you can't say your typical final thought anymore.
Yeah, man, we're proud season still. Not the way we wanted it to end, but I'll be damned if I'm gonna hang my head on a season in which we beat Ohio State and won the Big Ten. So we ball, and no more go blue as the final thoughts. But hell of a year. I'm proud of the boys.
There we go. There we have it. Thanks for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Bets, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q, with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling. It is free and available on all platforms. Like I said, be back with you guys tomorrow with another episode. Same time, same place. It is your team every day.
Every day.